thanks a million for honestly for joining us today. We really appreciate it. It's great to speak to two people from two major companies in the form of Emaar and Standard Chartered. So basically, we don't want to be bombarding you with like technical questions or anything like that. We just want to know how both you guys and your respective jobs have been affected by obviously COVID-19. It's obviously affected us at CPI Media Group. We're unable to distribute print magazines, and it's affected us in the cancellation of some big events we had coming up next month as well. So it's had a big impact for us. But just obviously, I'll start off with you, Dr. Erdal, and just in terms of your day-to-day job at Standard Chartered. I know you already told me in your previous role at Microsoft you worked a lot remotely, but in terms of you doing your job day-to-day, how much has this impacted your ability to do your job?
I mean, me personally, because I'm a regional head, managing many countries, it didn't affect me that much because I used to be in calls all the time anyway, unless being here in the IFC, we have two offices here. One of them is UAE, the other one is the IFC, the Dubai International Financial City, where the regional heads are. Unless we're doing a physical meeting, most of the time, it was, on the call or traveling. Of course, it did affect some countries where, I mean, we have a great BCP business continuity plan where we are on laptops. If something happens, we can just get our laptop. Yeah. We have all the security measures. It's my job to ensure it's there. But not everybody, I mean, knowing, okay, being still connected, not talking about the bank, being still connected as a non-cybersecurity advisor in the region, I know many people are reaching out, many CISOs are reaching out to me saying, Erdal, we don't have laptops, we have desktops. Should we, for example, allow Zoom? I don't know if you know, Zoom has its own security problems. Like they have currently, I was thinking twice before I install it, because just last day, I was writing an article about Zoom for the university. I don't know if you know, I'm still a lecturer at Australian Charles Sturt University, part of my PhD.
I don't like that, yeah.
I'm still part of it, and I was writing a privacy and data concern. Then today I had to install Zoom. I'm like, okay. Saying that, okay, of course, I mean, we have to do it, right? There is no other option. I mean, okay, being a global bank, we have the budget, we can do it. But what about, for example, Taha Tech, being a media company? So you can, yes, everything goes to digital, but advertisers that pay you for print media, and now you're saying it's online. I'm like, hold on. So there is unfortunately not a fair balance, but in the other hand is your life. I mean, yes, you might lose. I mean, many people are complaining, we paid for the transportation fee for the school, we want them back. What should the transportation company do? Yes, they took the money, but they cannot just give it back because they have to pay their own stuff, their own bills. It's I think digital. We're talking all about this digitalization, but I think this is a early wake-up call for the humanity, where we need to think about the impacts. It's not just having the best VPN, the best firewall, the best security measures, or the best stuff like Tatiana, for example, or like yourself, for example. Okay, it's also thinking about how we can go to the next step while not getting affected that much. I don't want to talk too much, Tatiana.
I think you've taken it a step forward. We've just started working from home 2 days ago. So despite the fact that my role being in the strategy department is fine, I can float around, I can work from wherever I want, but not everyone in the company is given this liberty. Exactly. So this is where it becomes a little tricky, because in times of crisis, we need to show solidarity. So despite the fact that my job role allowed me to be floating and working anywhere and everywhere I wanted, it was counterintuitive for the company to allow some people to do it and others not to. So what does it mean? Like, my life is of higher value because I'm on a certain position, filling a certain role, and people on the job who actually need access to their desktops, who have no remote work. So we had this debate over the past 2 weeks, and we continued actually working from office until we got a directive on Tuesday, on Sunday evening actually, to start working from home. And a few people stayed working from office actually until this morning. So I think it opened the eyes on multiple things. One, the fact that we are even as efficient, or maybe more efficient, now that we feel secure at home with the current situation. People are as efficient working at home. So it's reopening the eyes onto how we were doing what we were doing. So it also, during the period where we had to work from office, when the entire almost 80% of the world was working from home, the concerns that started popping up is the fact that we are not ready as a company to move to the next level, to take it digital, or is it the fact that even if we have the capabilities, the data capabilities, the system, the VPN, the laptops, we have both hardware and software capabilities, is it the fact that we do not have them, or is it the fact that we have them but we do not trust our team enough that they would be actually fulfilling their jobs from home, and that they would actually be in not breaching any part of our security? So I think it's multiple tier, and it really opened the eyes on how we do what we do. And it also made us realize that, you know, those death by meetings, we're one of those companies that like to meet a lot. Like everything is in a meeting. You cannot, most of the things that can be done over like a call or a WhatsApp. So this is where actually people like myself came in. I came into the company 3 years ago. I was still quite young. I'm not that young anymore, but
like I got the feeling. All right, you are not young, then I'm old. Thank you very much. You
sorry,
could tell it in a different way. See,
no,
I told you I should hide my camera. I warned you up front.
No, I actually found my first white hair this week, so it hasn't been the best week.
I don't have any, so any hair. I mean, any hair. Not.
Guys, you've both made great points there, and I suppose it kind of leads me on to my next question, because you've both sort of subtly touched on it. Is, do you think us now all being working remotely, will it lead to a paradigm shift in terms of culturally the way we view working from an office and working from home? Do you think if we're able to effectively work from home, that will give us greater flexibility and maybe move away from the traditional, have to come into the office at 8 a.m., clock out at 5 o'clock? Do you think this could lead to employers being more flexible with their employees in terms of how they go about their work?
Tatiana, you, me?
You can go
Either
ahead.
one of you can take it. Well, I'll offer it to both of you.
Okay, as I said in the beginning, since early 2010s, late 2000, I'm working from home. Honestly, if you think about check side road traffic, for example, in the morning, even though I live in JBR, I drive against the traffic.
Yeah.
If you think about the rent prices in Dubai, I know this has been recorded, but it's a bit high. Working from home could be maybe more effective. But again, I know there are some roles, like if you're on the bank's Swift team, you cannot work from home that much, right? Or if you are in the printing facility where you need to ensure that printer doesn't get jammed, you have to be physically there. Or if you're a doctor, for example, or a bus driver, how are you going to do it remotely? There are some roles that we cannot take remotely, but there are multiple roles where we can easily take remotely. Again, at Microsoft, for example, or here in the bank, honestly, I remember myself traveling with them 5 days, 5 continents. I mean, I was in Istanbul for a meeting. I flew to South Africa for another meeting. From there, something urgent happened up. I had to fly to Las Vegas. And then I was in New Zealand for another meeting. Actually, 5-6 days. It was like 4 or 5 continents. Yes, because I could not do those in virtual environment. Where now, for example, yes, we could be shaking our hands the old traditional ways. We could be having a coffee, and we could be next to each other. But at the moment, the risk. I mean, this webinar can be. We can. I mean, the 24th, for example, I was nominated by your media group. Thank you very much for CISO 50. It was great. It was going to be great to be here in JBR. Where we're going to be all come together, but you done the right thing. We can do this maybe in 2 months again, but if I get sick and I have something hidden which I don't know, and then die, or more importantly, I don't know that I'm sick and I go meet another few hundred people.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening, right? I think that's the right thing. But for the future, I guess you're going to ask another question. I'll let Tatiana speak. I don't want to take the...
Yeah, just the same question to you, Tatiana, just in relation to Emaar, the sort of culture and the mindset there. You've obviously already indicated that you can work remotely, but some people in your company can't. So is there some people, you know, within Emaar that will never be able to work remotely due to some of the jobs they have?
Yeah, it's definitely the case, and unfortunately, this is the job type you're choosing. So it's Emaar is broken into several different entities. So you take your hospitality entity, or you take your entertainment entity. Who's going to be running your hotels? Yeah. Who's going to be servicing your cinemas? Who's going to be servicing your kidzania? Who's going to be looking after your kids? So these jobs definitely will never be able to work from home unless you're moving to this completely virtual experience in a hotel, which no one actually wants. So yes, we are in certain places looking at replacing this kind of need for heavy human capital by more efficient means, but some jobs will never be able to work remotely. But another thing we need to focus on is, why are we working from office? Like why the positions that could be working from home are working from office, despite the fact that I would say people are as efficient. Sometimes people aren't as efficient. And despite the fact that I'm one of the people who says, listen, I'd like to wake up at 10 in the morning and have my coffee and then work on my laptop. Working home for 3 days made me beg my boss to actually move back to office. So I don't think this is cut out for, unfortunately, I don't think this is cut out for everyone. So
yeah, I think everyone's experience is different, as you say.
Yeah. Despite the fact that we think that our companies are keeping us back from being the most efficient we can and actually having a laptop and working in Central Pay if I'm on a break in summer, despite the fact that this is what we think, we're trying to blame it on the wrong people. So yes, in fact, we do have VPN access now, but is it as efficient? It's not as efficient. Let me be very honest. If you've noticed what's happening with the global bandwidth of the internet now, so is it just the company? I think the worldwide internet is not yet ready to have everyone working from home. Yeah. So
for example, a few days ago, it was off because of the global cable cut. I mean,
yes,
you know, it's not their fault. Something happened on the marine. The cable was cut, and here we go. I mean, even at Microsoft, I was used to say this a lot as well. Like cloud is only good as long as you are connected.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean,
there is one simple requirement: connectivity. And
the requirement can be gone this fast.
And it happened. That's why I gave the DO example. I know it's usually not too good to mention company names, but it was public news. It's not secret, right? And it was not their fault either. So
there's been obviously a huge demand placed on networks.
You heard what Netflix did? They cut the full HD, HD. YouTube did the same.
Yeah.
Which is fair.
I think it was Amazon, Netflix, Facebook, YouTube. They all, it was particularly in Europe, they all reduced the video quality.
Worldwide.
Oh, worldwide.
They did it worldwide. Yes.
So I'm just saying, it's not usually, it's very good for employees to have like a scapegoat to blame, and it's because I'm one of the people who are guilty of saying, you know what, why don't we all work from home? And I had been begging for 2 weeks, why don't we work from home? And once we move to work from home, some people are not as efficient. Some people do not want to work from home, even if they're given, you know, this. And sometimes my kind of role, I can work from anywhere I want, but I've been literally in video calls and in conference calls over the past 3 days, starting 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. for things that could have been solved within 5 seconds. So we have an open environment. This is one of the places where I feel Emaar was really at the forefront, especially in the kind of industry. So we're not in the tech industry, not in the digital industry, but we've since I've joined the company, we've had open space offices. So it really makes a big difference. So I'm surrounded by the people I need, and within 5 seconds, I can get one task fully done. So I contact legal, I go straight to the COO, I just talk to finance. Within 5 minutes, you can get a whole project information done. So now organize a conference call everyone separately, send emails. So I'm saying, yes, it's a good, yes.
You know, I'm just, you know, all these technical issues. Then something happens during, like someone just, while you're talking, jumps in. Hello, it's Erdal here. I just joined the call. while the others are, I cannot hear. Then,
Yes.
all this bandwidth issues, it's adding all this unnecessary
And I do
pain to
think,
the meeting.
yeah, and I do think even if we are to move partly virtual, flexi work, virtual work, I do think there is an element of training as well. So maybe Zoom is one of the more straightforward platforms. You have platforms that are a bit more complicated. Open camera, don't open camera. You're in your PJs, and then you thought the camera was not gonna be on, and then it's suddenly on with your boss. So I'm saying like it's a more intricate issue than we usually thought it was. It's not just organize everyone's laptops with VPN, send them home. But I could see that on my team personally, I've seen some people are not as efficient, and unfortunately, that's the case in the world. So I do think part of the job will be made virtual, and it's part of what we're learning now. But if we do keep an instance for operational people staying in operations, and even people who get the flexibility to work from home, it could be a choice that they would like to have this communal work vibe to work from. I would be one of those people, probably
Well
more
made point.
than most.
I just got a WhatsApp message from my employee, like, boss, I want to go to office. I'm like, no, you're not going to the office. And same complaint. It's a female who tells I cannot work from home. And this lady is usually, I kick you out to go from home. It's like 7:30 p.m. We are stacked, and I'm like, go home. She's like, no. And now asking this person, she's very effective in the office. Okay, she's my right hand, but unfortunately, she's not that
she's struggling
home
to
ready.
adapt to working from home.
Yeah. Where with me, I told you when I joined first the bank, I'm like, a phone in my beautiful office. I'm like, why do I need a phone? How do I make an international call? Like, I was like, seriously, I felt like my grandfather when I had that beautiful Cisco phone to reuse it. Yes, being PhD holder in information technology, writing all these books, then I cannot even operate a physical phone. It was quite funny. Can you imagine you are in the bank, like, I don't know how to use this thing, where I can do everything digitally very easily. So there is different paradox or parametrics which affects all of us, I think.
Yeah, I think the both of you have made great points, and I suppose even going back to my own situation, my wife's a teacher, and I've been listening to history and maths lessons as well, and it's hard
for free,
I'm being re-educated, which I can look as a positive, but it can be quite irritating at times when I'm trying to write. But now you've both made great points, and I think that the main issue is the fact we've all been sort of forced to work remotely globally at the one time because of this pandemic. The choice has been taken out of our hands to some degree. But I just want to touch on the security aspect. Obviously, both of you guys work for very large companies, and security would be a very important aspect of that. So how has that transition been in terms of making sure the company and your employees are secure when you're moving from a traditional work environment to a virtual workplace?
All right, let me take again. As I said, I'm working for the bank. Of course, we think about all these possibilities all the time, but put the bank aside. Back to my Microsoft days, where I used to visit many different type of customers, such as Emaar or you name it, anybody who can afford Microsoft, basically, as a cybersecurity consultancy. I had two types of customers. I mean, forget about this. I'm pretty sure you heard about the names James Comey, who used to be the ex-FBI director. He says there is two types of organizations. One, they know they've been hacked, and two, they don't. So it is like, I keep this saying, like, if Giorgia, Adelaide, and Tatiana forget about being in Dubai. Let's say you're in New York City, okay, which is, it has very safe place, and it has some dark places as well. And suddenly there is nobody in the street, and you see two-person which is really not looking that nice, personal instinct. Of course, we don't judge people by their look. Yeah. They look at your bag, you know what I mean? What will you do? You will usually hold your bag. Yes, that instinct where you try to hold your bag bit under your arm, bit more straight, right? So they can grab it. being in cybersecurity, this is what I always tell. This is how I live, being like a psychopath, expecting the unexpected anytime. Because I always believe the hackers are, while, for example, I work in company X, which has X many thousand employees, X many thousand servers, desktops, laptops, phones, applications. The hacker needs to find just one vulnerability
One
in
weakness.
one application to attack one component, which can bring you down. And name me a company who was not hacked and who was not in the news. Again, of course, we're not going to do it here. It's been recorded. But you can easily go to Bing or Google, just type hack and you will see all those companies being hacked.
Exactly.
So it's our job, right, Tatiana, to ensure we foresee possible attacks. We watch our neighbors. It's really important. Like I'm pretty sure you remember what happened a few months ago in Australia. When the fire first started, our dear Prime Minister, he ignored it. He said, it's just a fire, happens every year in Australia, which it does, but it started to get so big, we couldn't control it. It went out of control. So if there is a fire in the next building, all right, you better, or in your neighbor, let's assume you live in a villa, even if you don't like your neighbor, let's assume you have personal issues, you better go and help, because the fire can easily jump into your building. Example, coronavirus. You like me or not, you better ensure I'm locked at home and I don't come and see you. So I don't, or we are not in the same bus, not in the same room. I mean, even if you like each other, it's not about how clean you are. It's about how we can disable the
virus
infectivity, right?
Yeah.
So back to cybersecurity. I mean, it's like Corona. If we put the right measures, I don't think so we have to be afraid. But unfortunately, again, being more than 20 years in the industry, I wrote so many books. Even I do some silly mistakes because I'm a human. And, 99% of the attacks starts because of human mistakes. Tatiana?
I think, listen, I think we preach ourselves for being something we call positively paranoid in Emaar. So sometimes this could sound like an oxymoron, but we are positively paranoid, meaning that although we do our best, you always, some things are inevitable, and security breaches could be inevitable. The problem here is what we're talking about is security breaches in the terms that someone is trying to breach your own system. The second part of the situation is, do we actually have such a tight link in employees when you're talking about 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 employees working from home? What's the level of trust we have in each other to the fact that we are not the ones who actually start the security breach? What do I mean with that? So the fact that I'm kind of always the devil's advocate when it comes to these things in office. So if we think like, why do we actually trust our employees enough to send them home? I'm one of the people who usually stands like, the voice of the people, saying, of course we do. How can you say that? And in a few examples, the most minute example, you see an internal communication that is intended to be internal, that is sent with saying internal communication, second day reaching all media platforms, being tweeted, being sent to CEOs of different companies. So these instances, these instances prove a point by evidence. So sometimes it is, yes, security breach from external people, and this is something we are always positively paranoid about, because we take all our measures from an IT security perspective. We actually obviously work with Microsoft and a number of other tech giants to assist us in this. We have a particular team looking after this all the time, but sometimes some things are inevitable, and we would be kind of ignorant saying that we are perfectly secure if the biggest companies of the world aren't perfectly secure. But we take all the measures to ensure the security, and we are always paranoid about it. So we always are expecting something to happen, and we actually have countermeasures for it. That's one part of the situation. Second part of the conversation is, unfortunately, despite the fact that this is not something we would want to believe, not every person you have out of those 4, 5, 6,000 employees is a happy employee, and an unhappy employee will take any opportunity they can to actually, they think that it's bringing it back against the company. So this is something also that I personally feel offended about, because when you work so closely for a company, you kind of feel like you're representing it. You have this ownership mindset per se. So, and this is an example that happened a month ago. So I'm not sure this is a very public thing. So there was a very important, but it was internal communication sent for the benefit of line staff that usually are not communicated to. So this is where something as a security breach kind of offends the person who did it in one instance, and at the same time is a bit of a break of trust. So if you're sending this to your line staff who would usually not be communicated these things, major companies where you see the people who are your grades 1 and 2s, who are actually the people, your workers, have no idea of what's happening on the top in the decision making process. So take it whether it's a big logistics company, that your drivers, your workers, your logistics and warehouse people will not understand what's happening at the global level within the C-suite, what decisions are being made. I work for a company that believes that sometimes communication is a good means to have this transparency, at least in some instances. So this was done a month ago, and then you have this newsletter that's supposed to be internal, saying internal communication only for the benefit of employees only. Not that it had major secrets. It's just if this something as simple as this can go everywhere and anywhere in Dubai the next day, actually a lot of places around the world. Can you imagine some people, if they get the opportunity to themselves breach security, what they would do? So this is the question mark that keeps it. There is the system part of it, but there is the people part of it. So it's good to continuously build this trust to ensure that the people you have are people who are loyal to you the way you are loyal to them. So
yeah, I think it's
at the end.
Sorry, carry on.
Just one addition, when I get similar comments as well, being in cybersecurity, like, should we trust our employees? I'm like, I'm an employee too, and you are an employee too. You know what I mean? The person who says that, like, in Emaar, unless you're Sheikh Maktoum, you are an employee, right? Or in Microsoft, unless you are Bill Gates, you are an employee. So everybody's an employee. If you don't trust me, then what am I doing with your laptop? What am I doing with your resources? You should fire me. And this is straight what I say. Like, of course, I'm not saying trust and let them do everything what they want. Of course, you should have your control measures based on the roles. Like, a CFO should have full access for financial, where a CFO should not have admin rights in their laptop. Of course, he or she, the CFO, might have some admin rights for some specific applications, but not for the whole management. It's like, yes, I'm a driver in a bus, but it doesn't mean I can drive the bus, even though I have a bus license. Unless the driver gets a heart attack and there's not a driver, then you take over.
Yeah.
That's what I want to add to. Thank you, Tatiana. It was a really good definition.
Yeah. No, look, I think both of you gave really comprehensive responses to the cybersecurity issue, and I think Erdal, your point as well about sophistication of cyber attacks are on the increase, and the fact that so many businesses aren't ready to maybe be as secure as they would be in their traditional workplace environment. I'm sure, unfortunately, it's not me trying to be ultra negative. I think it's just the reality of the situation is there will be cyber attackers that are going to be able to exploit this current situation, unfortunately. But look, it's been a great conversation, guys. I know you're both very, very busy, so I'll let you get back to your daily jobs now. But it's been a fantastic conversation. Really enjoyed it, and I'm sure we'll pick this up in a couple of weeks and maybe see how things are evolving and developing. And I just want to say thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for having us. Thank you so much. I think it's a great conversation. Erdal, it was actually a pleasure of mine to meet you. It's a good platform. Giorgia and Mark, thanks a lot. It's always a good opportunity to connect with you, and it's fascinating how you're picking up on the hottest topics, usually what people are chatting about. So it's good to have a conversation that's not coronavirus. We're not talking about COVID-19. We're talking about one of the consequences of COVID-19 for the change.